Hello and welcome to Heal with Ty and Kara. And we have a special treat today, I think, with Kara's book. She's been writing a book that's based off the Greek mythology, Hades and Persephone. It's really, really good. And without further ado, I'm going to let her explain it.
All right, so last week I did a solo episode just kind of introducing this concept of how Hades and Persephone are a really cool way of teaching about the divine masculine and divine feminine energies within each of us. And so, if you haven't listened to that one, go back and listen to it because it's an introduction to what we're going to be talking about today, just in a real quick. It talks about how Hades is like the archetype of the Scorpio, like in the zodiac signs. And a Scorpio archetype is somebody that is really deep and sensual and structured and high moral code. Kind of like, they're not alpha. Like, if you think in terms of that wolf pack, a Scorpio archetype in the zodiac is not alpha, it's Sigma. And Sigma is like also very powerful, like a very natural leader, like a leader without even trying. And it's because they follow their own moral code, regardless of what the rest of the pack is doing or what Alpha thinks is right, or Alpha's current agenda at the time. A Sigma follows his own moral code and therefore is a leader in his own right, highly respected, and is perfectly capable of taking Alpha out. They just have no desire to, right? It's kind of like back in the day, there was a show on TV called Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman. And it's, in the old days where the pioneers are settling the towns, and she's a woman doctor, which is unheard of, and she comes into this old town, and trying to establish herself as a doctor, for these people, and they don't want to trust her because she's a woman. And as part of that community, there's a mountain man named Sully, and he is just like that. He's Sigma. He's not part of the pack. He's not involved in all the politics of the town. He doesn't take sides. He doesn't care that the woman doctor just came into town. He's like, good for her. That's amazing. What you guys have been bitching about having a doctor for years. Now you have one, so what's your problem? You know what I mean? Anyway, he's highly respected, though, because he's very knowledgeable about the area. He can hunt. He can protect them. He has really good friendship and respect with the Indians, right? He's a leader. He can interweave himself with everyone, but he has his own moral code that he runs by. And sometimes that pisses Alpha off because, Alpha wants to push his own agenda and wants to recruit Sigma to his agenda. And Sigma is always like, no thanks. I'm my own sovereign person. I follow my own sovereignty and my own values and morals, right? So, and Hades is also called Pluton, and like as in the planet Pluto, which is where Scorpio archetype comes from. So, I go into more depth of who Hades is and what he represents. So go check out that episode if you didn't get a chance to listen to it yet. And in this episode, we're going to talk about Persephone and how she represents the divine feminine. And so Persephone's story starts out in a field of flowers. And when we think of the goddess Persephone, we typically, have this image of a beautiful young goddess frolicking in a field of wildflowers and roses. She's innocent, naive, loving, and kind. And in the beginning of the Homeric hymn to Demeter, she's sitting in a field of wildflowers with her friend, a water nymph named Cyane. And they're just, innocently out there playing. And then all of a sudden the earth cracks open and this mean old Hades grabs her and kidnaps her and takes her to the underworld. And Cyane is so distraught, she just starts crying and cries so many tears that it creates that tiny little stream turns into this big river that is still runs through Sicily, the country, to this day. So, anyways, we also think, though, of Persephone, we also have images of her surrounded by skulls, dark wine, fire, and pomegranates, raging and powerful as the queen of hell. And that's quite the contrast. So, I think this is such a fun story to really go deep into Persephone and her journey. And I think that that her story doesn't start in that field of wildflowers, all innocent and meek and whatnot. It starts way before that. I interpret that scene where she's in the field of wildflowers and Hades all of a sudden comes and grabs her and takes her down as the dark night of the soul. And most people nowadays have heard of that term, the dark night of the soul, and what that means. And basically that means the time in our lives where we suddenly kind of question everything in our life that we've ever done or built, and we're like, shoot, I can't do any of this anymore. Like, frick, everything's falling apart around me. People often have panic attacks or like extreme anxiety. Oftentimes it's so extreme, people think they're literally having a heart attack and go into the emergency room. Like, it's a massive ego death, panic attack, anxiety that my entire identity, everything I've worked hard for my whole life, everything I've done, everything I am up until this point, I can't do anymore. And it's crumbling down, it's breaking apart. I don't know what the frick I'm gonna do, like, freaking out. That's your dark night of the soul, and it really forces you to face your priorities, because it's like the universe saying, you've been way off track and it's time to bring you back to your truth and get you back on track. So Persephone's story begins in the field of wildflowers, but we have to go back a little to fully understand, what led up to that dark night of the soul. And that's what's cool about really going into the depth of Persephone and her story. So Persephone was caught up in the middle of the gods' status quo and an ever-demanding father, Zeus. So when we look at Zeus, we see all the traits of the unhealed masculine: abuse of power, a huge ego, overindulgence, loose morals, no regard for a woman's sacred body temple, too big of an appetite for anything, and always demanding for performance and production. Go faster, push harder, do more, achieve greater things, run people down to get to the top, strike them down with lightning if they overstep and cross you along the way. Right? That's toxic masculine energy. And Persephone was his daughter, and not a demigod. She was a full-on goddess with very high expectations set upon her since birth. She was his pride, his progeny. He was boastful in the accomplishments he decided she should have, and made sure she stepped up to perform and produce. So Zeus and his toxic masculinity, seeking power and dominion and his own agenda, right, was forcing his agenda onto her. And so she would have been raised with that mentality that I gotta be and do and push and go and, right? And her mother, Demeter, was also a god caught up in that same toxicity and imbalance. And so, as her mother, I do believe Demeter was a very loving mother and very active and engaged mother. But she would have been with that context that rather than trying to support her daughter in balance, she would support her daughter in, surviving and thriving with those huge expectations put on her. Right? So let's pause here for a second and we're going to talk about what is divine masculine, what is divine feminine, and what the wounded versions of those looks like. Do you have any thoughts, baby, while we're paused for a second?
Yeah, just as you were talking about the toxic masculine, it reminds me, in my profession, it's of power and control in domestic violence situations. So power, anytime a household is raised in power and control, it makes it very difficult for the rest of the family members because they are having to try to survive in this culture of power and control. And whoever holds the power is the one that sets all the rules, that decides how things are going to go. And so for the rest of the family members, that can be very disheartening, especially if what is wanted from the person that has power is the opposite of what you want in your life, and over time it can wear you down to where you lose all sense of yourself, so
yes, 100%.
so yeah, but yeah, that's kind of my thoughts about that.
I love that, and that's so true. And that is exactly what happens, right? Every day in our lives, we're trying to balance the demands and expectations of other people. And so, yeah, thanks for that feedback, love. So, the wounded feminine versus the divine feminine. I'm going to list some traits so you can kind of get a good idea of what it means when the feminine energy. Remember, too, that this is critical to remember. Within each of us as individuals, we have both energies. And I'm going to go deeper into this here in a minute. But within myself, as a complete soul, I have divine feminine and divine masculine energy within myself. And they have to be in balance. Within Ty as a soul, he has divine feminine energy and divine masculine energy within himself as a soul, and they have to be imbalanced. So each one of us on this planet have masculine and feminine energy within us, and the trick is here, and what we're teaching here is how to keep those in balance and in harmony. All right, so wounded feminine is insecure and seeks validation. Divine feminine validates and celebrates herself. Wounded feminine is dissociated from the body. Divine feminine is deeply embodied. Wounded feminine feels unworthy. Divine feminine knows her worth and is not afraid to take up space and show up and, be here. Wounded feminine struggles to set boundaries. Divine feminine sets healthy boundaries. Wounded feminine compares herself. Divine feminine owns who she is. Wounded feminine stays in victim mode. Divine feminine stands in her power. Wounded feminine drowns in emotions. Divine feminine holds space for emotions. Wounded feminine is a people pleaser. Wounded feminine sacrifices her needs, is afraid to speak her truth, is blocked from her intuition, chases her desires, and has shame around her sexuality. Divine feminine pleases herself, honors herself and her needs, speaks her truth, is deeply connected and in tune with her intuition, and is a magnet to her desires, allowing her desires to come to her rather than chase them. And she's sensually and sexually expressed. So now let's jump to what the masculine energies are. So, divine masculine is encouraging, protects and guides, is inspired, takes inspired action, is clear in his communication, is responsible, has expanded vision, is aligned work, spiritual purpose, honest and humble, uplifting strength, expresses emotions, and is disciplined and driven. Wounded masculine is aggressive and selfish, easily offended, withdrawn emotions, like doesn't want to show emotions. Wounded masculine is competitive and materialistic, aligned with ego, stuck in the mind and disconnected from the heart. He's success-driven, refuses help, he's defensive, he's spiritually disconnected, and over-controlling. So, going back, to Persephone with this reality she's in, where she's in this society just like us today that's, completely out of balance and disconnected from the truth of who our souls are. It's a society that wants us to produce more and do more and achieve more and not just for ourselves, but the purpose of us doing more and producing more and going harder and achieving more is to further somebody else's agenda, the political power's agenda, right? In our society, we have all of these things like, big pharma taking us away from natural medicines and creating poisons to kill the natural medicines, right? With the fertilizers. You have, politics constantly pushing, things that aren't in alignment with our truth or our souls. And we're trying to navigate this world, this pressure they put on us. Do this, be more, achieve more. You got to do it this way. This is the right way. And whatever, and you have to navigate this world. And so that's what was going on with Persephone when she meets Hades, when the earth cracks open and he grabs her and takes her to the underworld, which I, again, say that is her dark night of the soul. And so there's this famous statue carved in marble by sculptor Gian Lorenzo Bernini. It's called The Abduction of Proserpina, which is Persephone. And it depicts Hades grasping so hard onto Persephone's thigh, you can see the indent in the marble from his fingertips. She's clearly distressed, a very clear tear running down one cheek, body twisted as far away from him as possible. He's holding on tight. She's trying to push him away. Her left wrist is pushing his face. Her right arm is flung high in the air, and Hades is holding as tight as he can with intention to take her with him, no matter what, down to the underworld. And the three-headed dog Cerberus is at their feet, symbolizing the gates of hell, which is typically a one-way ticket of no return. And it's quite the passionate sculpture. I think it really can represent how emotional it is when we're facing that dark night of the soul and suddenly we're like bitch slapped by the universe that we gotta face this truth. Our soul is waking up to everything that is not in balance in our lives and saying, no, we can't do this anymore. We got to get back into alignment. And so I want to talk about the Taoist tradition of the yin and yang. So when we talk about Hades and Persephone's divine masculine and divine feminine, they're an and, not an or. So when it comes to coins, there are two sides, heads or tails. When it comes to political parties, it's this or that. And we typically say black or white, light or dark, high or low, one or the other, right? Well, Hades and Persephone, representing divine masculine and divine feminine, are an and. It's not an or. One does not take precedence over the other. One's not more important than the other. They're an and. And so when we look at this Taoist tradition of the yin and yang, again, it's an and. So the yin and yang represents, yin is receptive. He's the masculine. He's cool, dark, introspective, nurturing. Or I'm sorry, yin, that's the feminine. She's receptive, cool, dark, introspective, nurturing. Yang is the masculine, active, warm, extrospective, and initiating. And neither is male or female, they're just the energies. They're simply polar energies that exist in all things. Yin and yang are not static, they are dynamic, constantly interchanging with each other. Day turns into night, activity becomes rest, inhale becomes exhale, dark becomes light. And what's really cool about the yin and yang is that symbol. I can't pronounce it right, but it's called Taihitu, the yin and yang symbol. It's a circle. Remember the black and white circle with the black and white dot? But it's not a line drawn evenly down the middle. It's a flowing, uneven line. But yet the space on either side is still in harmony and balance. So one side depicts the light, the other the dark. And each side has a dot, meaning each one holds the seed of the opposite. So they are not an or, they are an and. And yin and yang, it's yin and yang. They exist equally or not at all. So now let's look at the Hindu tantric tradition of Shakti and Shiva. So in this tradition, the divine masculine is pure, formless consciousness. He's awareness, stillness, and structure. The divine feminine is Shakti. She's pure dynamic energy, power, creativity, motion. Shakti is movement. Shiva is the witness. So in Tantra, Shakti and Shiva are one. They are inseparable. One cannot exist without the other. Or, said differently, one without the other is incomplete. It's not Shakti or Shiva. It's Shakti and Shiva. Shiva without Shakti is inert, a lifeless form. And Shakti without Shiva is chaotic, uncontrollable energy without purpose or direction. So without your awareness, the Shiva, the masculine, your energy, Shakti, has no purpose and can lead to toxicity and darkness and destruction and just chaos. So when I think of Shakti and Shiva, I think of like Nikola Tesla when he was doing all of his electrical experiments, and he had like this ball of energy, and like within this sphere, this like whatever it was, this glass sphere, you can see all of the electricity, just lightning bolts all over. So that's Shakti. She's energy, she's chaos, she's all the things, all creation. But without Shiva, that container, that conscious awareness, she would just be crazy and destructive, right? So we have to have the divine masculine within us to contain and protect and keep the balance. Any thoughts, love, before we keep going here?
Yeah, no, I think that container is an important piece to our humanity, containing our desires, containing our thoughts, learning how to manage our life with containing it versus it being something that is out of control, or even goes beyond, gets us into lots of things that maybe would lead our souls in a direction that we wouldn't want to go.
Right.
And so it's important to recognize that we need to harness some of those things, and it's good to have that piece of us that recognizes, hey, I need this container, I need this to help me feel safe within myself, and so that others can feel safe within my container as well, so
100%, yes,
yeah.
That's so good. So like in the yin and yang, in the Shakti and Shiva tradition, the universe is a product of Shakti dancing in Shiva's stillness, as in the divine masculine holds space for the sacred feminine to dance in her chaos. Together, their union is the awakening of consciousness in form. So, a mystical marriage of body and spirit. Hades and Persephone are not an or, they are an and. And the abduction of Proserpina, carved in the beautiful Carrara marble, is the spark or initiation that brought them out of imbalance, out of singularity, into union. And the universe has a way of destroying us with our own chaos, or better yet, I should say that differently. I think we have a way of destroying ourselves with our own chaos, and the universe has to finally step in and say, nope, we gotta force some balance here. And that's when our dark night of the soul comes in. We start awakening to everything, and we have to face the truth of what we've created thus far and start choosing differently. And so when we've lived this life out of balance, we've lived in a lot of trauma, whether we've created it for ourselves or somebody helped create those wounds for us, and then we live in victimhood and chaos and overdoing and projecting and disconnected from our hearts and our intuition, and just go, do, ignore our healing, don't ever make space for it or time for it, right? And it's just pure chaos. And so we have to have that balance of safety from the divine masculine and protection, that safe container and protection to heal in.
Absolutely. And a thought that I was having as you were going with that is that it shifts you in perspective as well. So if you stay with your same perspective as you're going down that path, it can just destroy you completely, right? So you almost need a shift in perspective to help you see what the universe is trying to teach you, or what the universe is trying to tell you. And if you are closed-minded to new perspective, it can really cause you to get worse and worse, to where it'll take you all the way down if you let it. And so it's important to look at your own way of seeing things and say, okay, am I closed to this? Is my mind not open? Is my third eye closed? Am I not open? So there's a lot of parts to this that you would have to open up all parts of perspective to kind of see it. And the universe is constantly giving us beautiful signs and wonders. And if we are too caught up in the toxic masculine and feminine energies, we miss it. We don't see what the universe is trying to show us or teach us. And so, and we don't have the ability to contain those things and to hold them sacred because we've let go of that perspective and we've shut out any other perspectives, so we struggle to learn something new that we need to learn. So
yeah, caught in the victim mode, which is an imbalanced state. Yeah, that's so good, love. So the feminine, the divine feminine, is about remembering who we are as soul essence. It's held in the heart emotionally, connected, graceful. We stop doing so much and never allowing people to do things for us and start allowing help. We start seeking help. We start taking a break. We slow down. The feminine energy is more free-flowing. It is very communicative. It speaks its needs, right? It doesn't let everybody else's needs come before. And that's where the strong boundaries come in. When I was first reading this list of what divine feminine energy is, I saw strong boundaries and I thought, that's not the feminine, that's the masculine. But no, the feminine energy, if you are really in tune with your divine feminine, you have strong boundaries and you say, nope, I'm not going to do or be forced to perform anything that is out of alignment with my soul or my body's current energy, right? And that's where that yin and yang symbol is so cool. It's not a straight line. It's not 50-50, right? Our divine energy balance is not a perfect 50-50 balance. It might be 20-80, 70-30, 40-60. It's not a 50-50 balance. In our lives it's going to be the same way, right? And so when we are embodied in our full divine feminine energy, we have strong boundaries that are not afraid to say, no, that's not for me. No, I'm taking on too much. I appreciate you asking me to do that, but I can't right now, right? So it's strong boundaries. She's creative. She's present in the moment, trusting of her intuition, nurturing, soft, playful, and compassionate. And when we're out of balance, when we're disconnected from our divine feminine and we're in that toxic masculine energy, it's hard for us to slow down. It's hard for us to take a break. We feel guilty, right? We feel guilty for stopping or pausing or resting. We don't take time to do our health routine and our self-care, right? We have anxiety all the time. I gotta go and do this. I can't even sit down. I can't rest. That's the toxic masculine energy. And so what's so cool about this story of Hades and Persephone is it's just such a fun tale of how to get the balance back. But what's ironic is, divine masculine is the sun, right? The active energy. Active, it's doing, it is producing, it's a safe container, it's protection. And the feminine is the opposite. It's rest. It's just simply being. It's receiving. It's, intuition. The divine masculine is that spark, and the feminine is the womb that contains it. So in Kabbalah, which is a Jewish tradition, the divine masculine is the spark of life, or the seed, and the feminine is the womb or the soil, right? So what's fascinating is, in this story of Hades and Persephone, it's almost so you would think if divine masculine is the sun and the producing and the doing and right, wouldn't Hades be up in the world and in the above world, and Persephone be the womb where the seed grows, right, down? But it's opposite in the story. So in the darkness, in the deep, in the depth, in the womb, we find Hades. And up in the world, and the sun and where everything you're supposed to produce and do, we find Persephone, because they are not yet embodied in their balance of the two energies. They are in their toxicity. So Persephone is in toxic masculine, and Hades is in toxic feminine. He's hiding out. He doesn't want to be seen. He prefers to be by himself. He's isolated. He's just, fuck everybody. Screw you guys. I'm down here. I'm going to do my thing. I'm not going to contribute to society necessarily. I'm just, over it. Not in balance. So he's still doing his work in the underworld, but he's like completely cut off from the outer world. So both of them are kind of in their opposite energies. And as their story unfolds, we're going to see them come into union as a one divine feminine and masculine balance. Remember, it's Shakti and Shiva, yin and yang. One does not exist without the other, right? So it's really, I think it's such a cool story. So any last thoughts, baby?
Yeah, the healthy piece of that, right? That we come together and then we experience health on both sides. Like both energies are being put into one soul, and that's what makes for a relationship that lasts. One that you can feel safe in, one that you can feel playful in, one that you feel complete peace, knowing that you're safe, knowing that the energy is not going to leak anywhere else. It's going to stay between you and your partner. So as we get to these next level thoughts, especially our next few podcasts, it's going to be important to look at how this relates to you within yourself, but also like how does it relate to you and your partner. All of us are coupling in some way or another. And when you have that coupling, you've got this masculine and feminine energy that's flowing through your relationship. And you might know for surety that there are some things that are way out of balance, and there are some things that might be in really good balance. And I guess my question for all of you out there is, how do you tell? How do you know if you are in balance in your relationship, or if you're so far out of balance that you're like, what am I doing? Or you're somewhere in between and you're like, okay, I've got a lot of things that are okay in my relationship, but I've got a lot of things I really don't like either. And trying to decide, okay, at what point did I not stand up for myself and my needs within the relationship? At what point did I let go of my vision of what I felt was a healthy masculine and feminine relationship? Because I've done it in my own personal life where I've given up on the idea that there could be a perfect balance, a yin and a yang, a perfect masculine, feminine coming together, because it wasn't what I had experienced in my relationships. And so I really had to do some work on this last time through. And so, learning from these stories and learning new perspectives, it's definitely helped me see, the unhealthy parts of myself and the unhealthy parts of myself within a relationship. And then it's also helped me see the healthy sides of myself and the healthy parts of me within a relationship. And the cool thing is when you can gain awareness to your issue, to what you're doing wrong, and you take ownership of those things. You don't pass the blame. You don't tell somebody else it's their fault. You don't stay in victim mode, but you look within yourself and what it is that where you lost your way. That's when you start answering those questions. And it's so beautiful when you kind of get some answers to that. And the answers to those questions come in ways that you wouldn't think. Like, it's usually in, a quiet walk or a hike up to the top of a mountain. All of a sudden you're going to get some kind of clarity to your life. And it's usually when you're in a quiet space. Sometimes it's by a creek or even a slow running river, or by the ocean. Water movement for some reason really is something that helps me find clarity. And I would imagine that works for a lot of you as well, as just being around, just moving water. But there's a sense of clarity that comes, and if you listen to that clarity, that's when you can progress and evolve. But if you ignore that clarity, which a lot of us do, we stay stuck in our current perspective. And if we refuse to see a different perspective, then we're really stuck and we get very toxic. So I'm hopeful that as any of you guys are out there listening to this, you'll understand the importance of listening to nature, listening to new perspectives, hearing out new ways of thinking, so that you can unlock the true potential within you.
Amen. That was beautiful, babe. Yeah, so society is in that toxicity. It's that pure chaos, raging electricity going every which way, right? And the challenge is to not let that control us and, be the wind blowing us in every direction. We have to stand firm in what is truth to our soul, regardless of how fierce the wind is blowing, and remain in harmony and balance with both those, right? Our feminine intuition and our soul's truth, and then the masculine that takes that creation, or and creates the idea from your soul's truth and contains it and protects it, so that you can birth these creations that you were meant to, and not just be a shaft in the whirlwind of the chaos of society, right? And same with your relationship, right? So that's the challenge, and that's what's so cool about this story. So next week we're going to go in deeper. So now we have kind of the Persephone and Hades are now forced together. They are in an awakening. And so we're going to start talking about what happens next when we all face this point of our lives where we're starting to wake up and be aware and be like, I cannot do this toxic stuff. I can't do this imbalance. I can't do this crap society wants me to do. But what do I do now? Now I'm stuck in this in-between space. And it's scary. It's unpredictable. I don't know what to do.
Yeah, so that's where faith comes in. I think a lot of us have different faiths or different ways that we've built faith or a belief in something. And so, yeah, I think that's something to kind of think about as well. When you're making a change in your life, it is scary. because you got used to, even if it's a very hard road, you've gotten used to that road, and it's very hard to let go of things that you're familiar with, and to explore and go into something new. But that's something that both Kara and I love about the Hades and Persephone story, is that they both had to venture into something very new in order to get to the beauty that was within. And it is deep, and you have to go way deeper than you've ever gone with another person and within yourself to get to that place. And it's really cool when you decide that you're not just going to let yourself stay stuck in your current way of thinking, your current life, even your current spirituality, right? I mean, there's certain things that we get kind of hammered in to our mind from the time we're little kids all the way to our adulthood, and then we wonder why we feel shameful or guilty about certain things. It's the way we were raised, and some of those early on beliefs, and maybe even religious beliefs that we got hammered into our mind at a young age. And then we turn into this adult going through these things, and we're like, whoa, I've got all this shame now. I've got all this guilt now, and that's toxicity. Anytime we're in shame or in guilt, it's toxic. Now, I'm not saying, we should all go out and do things that are wrong. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that there's certain things that we've been taught in our youth or as children that might need to be at least looked at, and at least see, okay, is there a way that we're practicing that might be unhealthy? Is there a way that we've been looking at our life and said, okay, is that actually healthy for me? Is that part of my balance, or is that putting me so far out of balance that I can't even find myself, because I'm doing so much for this religion, or doing so much for this political agenda, or whatever it might be, that we lose ourselves and lose our partners sometimes too. And so that's something that I want to just kind of express, is the importance of balance, like we've talked about from the very beginning, is trying not to get too far out of balance, staying open to new perspectives. And Kara and I are excited because there's a lot of good work in this Hades and Persephone story that we can all learn from. It's really cool.
Yeah, thank you, babe. That was awesome. And so next week we're going to talk about their descent into the underworld, and this is really the beginning of where the healing work starts. But there's also this space called the liminal. And the liminal is the in-between. So let's talk about the theory of the garden. We're wrapping it up here. We're almost done. But like when you plant a seed in the soil, there's this time, this gap where you've planted the seed. You know it's going to sprout and become a flower or a fruit eventually. But man, that time between when you planted that seed in the soil and when you first see a tiny little green sprout, and then you gotta wait another several weeks for it to start flowering and bearing fruit, that's a long time. And sometimes we get a lot of fear that comes up because we've planted this seed and ain't nothing happening. There ain't no green sprouts. Nothing's happening. So then we freak out and we panic and we go right back to toxic habits. Right? So this is so important, this liminal space. And what happens in the liminal is the transformation, the transmutation, the healing, right? It's like that caterpillar.
That cocoon.
And the cocoon is the liminal. Inside that cocoon, what happens? It completely gets dissolved, turns into a soup, and a brand new life is created. And it comes out of that cocoon completely transformed into a new spiritual, beautiful creature, the butterfly, right? So that's what we're going to be talking about next time. So stay tuned. Follow the show. Please share this, guys. We need help with growing our audience. So if this resonated with you, if you liked what we're talking about, if it's helpful to you, please share it. And follow the show, leave a review so more people can find us. We really, really appreciate that. Thank you all, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
How do you stop that, love? That was cool, babe. Good job. Thank you for your insights.